Welcome everyone to the On God's Payroll global event. I keep calling it a global party because it is a celebration of the fact that it is the divine design and your birthright to thrive at what you love and were born to do financially and otherwise. So as I'm always encouraging at the start here, take a moment, really set your intention to listen in with a willingness to activate your deepest knowing and ability to move from this truth and to receive the exact right insight, inspiration, tool, or next step that's perfect for you to bring the most thrilling expression of your soul work into form, regardless of whatever old fears or conditioning or upper limits may have prevented you from being totally clear and able to move in that direction before right now. I'm your host and creator of this event, Lisa Berkovich, and today I'm so excited to share with you Patrick Combs. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Lisa. It's awesome to be here. Just to hear you unfold that topic the way you so eloquently and adeptly did.
Thank you so much. And I want to share a bit about you for those who are meeting you for the first time or don't know you well yet. And before I give your official bio, I really want to share a few things about who you are to me, because you are in general, a lightning rod for following one's bliss. I see you as that. And this event literally got birthed through a conversation with you. And at that time, we talked about this, me interviewing you, and here we are. It took
Here
a few
we are.
years. It
I
took a few
remember.
years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos.
It was, and you just really encouraged me to
Oh,
just,
I just remembered the conversation exactly because I was having so many visions when you were talking to me about what made you tick and what would make it more fun and more fun and more fun. And I pictured you in a location. All just came flooding back to me. But what would
uh,
make that more fun?
I remember it's
For
crystallized for me.
that
So
was
thank
all.
you for helping to bring this into form. You're also, to me, such a stellar example of honoring the creative process. You have, and what I'm going to go into, I mean, your accomplishment in so many different areas and ways that you bring your gifts to the world, you express your creativity in the world, and just following that inspirational journey, following that bliss, following that spark, following that aliveness, and just keeping on iterating as you go. And I just love that about you. And do you want to say anything to that?
Crazy.
What's that?
I'm a little
You're a
crazy.
little crazy. I also just really want to honor what devotion I see to pure service through all the ways that you do what you do. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the absolute truth. So your official bio, so people can learn, like your let me, guy, listen in. Patrick Combs is a Hall of Fame professional speaker and inspirational speaker, speaking coach, best-selling author of 5 books, and highly acclaimed comedic entertainer. He's been the guest speaker for more than 2,000 organizations and the star comedic entertainer on more than 400 stages worldwide. He's shared stories and strategies from his journey with millions of people around the globe for 30 years. His clients include many huge companies, Google, Shell, Hilton, Stanford. He's also lent his talents to helping kids through the Boys and Girls Club of America, coaching prisoners at the Donovan Correctional Institute, and funding a school in Kenya. Along the way, Patrick's been a cover story in the New York Times, the London Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, huge, more than 100 newspapers. It's been on ABC Nightly News, NBC Nightly News, Good Morning America, many of those shows. And the odds were stacked against Patrick making any name for himself. He was raised by a single mom who made less than enough to make ends meet. He was born into a family tree where no one had ever attended college, and he graduated from a state university. Today, he's one of the only people in the world to have accomplished both a renowned motivational speaking career and a global smash hit comedic one-man theater show, Man One, Bank Zero. Add that Patrick's a five-time author with more than 200,000 copies of his books sold, plus founded and operating two additional businesses. And you have a person who's overcome the odds and demonstrated what's possible when you lead with heart and execute with excellence. So thank you, Patrick, for being here and sharing who you are with us.
I did all that, but I also wrote that. So as is as is what you do in the life of a solopreneur. But this time when I heard it, because I wrote that about 3 years ago, I heard something that I probably would rewrite today. The odds were stacked in my favor, weren't they?
Yes. Yes.
Being born under the exact circumstances I was born under, they weren't stacked against me. They were stacked perfectly for me. Being born to a single mom, being the first person from my family to ever go to college, having no father to show me the way, having to make up my own path. These were all, my mom being depressed, severely depressed. These were all, in hindsight, clearly the perfect seeds and the perfect setup for doing my life.
Boom. And that's one of your masteries as well, is what's happening up here in the mind, and the perspective that we hold is one of the things that isn't actually shared in that. What I read was you are a devoted presence practitioner and spiritual teacher. And a presence practice is something that has not only been incredibly impactful on your own life, but you've helped many others with developing theirs. So can you, I would love if you would actually start us off. Would you be willing, putting you on the spot, would you be willing to start us off with a presence practice so it would help everyone arrive here a bit more to receive even more from this conversation than they might have otherwise?
Sure. Well, let's first of all just get everybody clear on what the heck is a presence practice. And I know many people listening know exactly what it is. And some people, like me a while back when I was in my 40s, didn't know what that was. So the fastest way I would sort of define what being present means is to look at, well, what does being unpresent mean? Because it's easier for us to know. Have you ever been around someone who's unpresent? So presence is the opposite. If someone unpresent isn't their body's there, but their mind and their soul and their beingness is not there, and you look at them and you go, I don't know where they are, but they're not here. Maybe they're in the past. Maybe they're in a daydream of what they're going to do later today. But mentally and emotionally and psychologically, they're not here. Just their physical shell is. So that's being unpresent. And what I love about noticing unpresence in myself is that it is literally living in a hallucination. And science tells us we all live half of our life in a hallucination until we wake up and take control of our mind and say, I don't want to live half of my life in a hallucination. And hopefully that sounds like, come on, we don't live half our life in a hallucination. But in fact, we do. And it's because when you are not really paying attention through your five senses and something else, there's something else too that's kind of just consciousness here, like a lit lantern. When you're not here, you are mentally in a movie that's playing out about the future, possible futures, but it's a movie and it's covering your viewpoint of reality, or that movie is playing the past. So that's a mental movie is a hallucination created by the mind of something that's not happening. So science has measured it and said half the time that's what people are doing. They're mentally time traveling. They're mentally wandering. So it's easier to define what presence is if you get really clear in yourself what not being present is. Not being present, the simplest terms is you're at dinner and you're people that you love and you care about or you want to connect to. And half of your awareness is on your phone vibrating and in your mind thinking, I wonder what that is. And so you miss half of their sentence. Literally, you don't hear it because your mind went, "Oh, I wonder what's on my phone. I wonder if it's that person I was texting earlier. I wonder if it's just junk." And then when your mind comes back from that mental little wandering there, you might have to say to your friend one of two things. Uh-huh. The code language for, I don't know what you just said, but I'm going to pretend I did. Or you'd have to say, excuse me, which is my part of my presence practice, say, excuse me, my mind wandered for a second. Could you repeat that to me? I say it out loud. It helps me be totally honest with myself and with the person with me. So once you say, I want to get better at that, I would like to be in my real life. Life is only real in one place, and that's right here, right now. Now, let me just bait the hook with something you can only discover for yourself. I can't prove it to you. But boy, oh boy, I can encourage you. I can sing from mountaintops about it. I can testify to it. And I try and I do, and I always will. For some reason, reasons unknown, the more time you spend in the present moment, fully present of the moment, the more miracles come to your aid. And I know this like I know this. It is the fundamental power underneath my life now. It is the number one sustenance that I depend on to make a living and to have a great life. That's how much I believe in it. I believe in it more than my bank account. I believe in it more than my talent. I believe in it more than my well-being. You tell me, what's the single greatest investment you could make to have a great life? Be here now often. Because for some reason it opens a channel. This is not a scientific explanation. I don't think anybody knows how it works, but it works. You open some kind of channel because you're here and now in your real life, and something comes through that supports you in a dependable way. Okay, so if you take the bait on the hook and you go, I'm interested, I need some more of that. Are you telling me that it can give me more opportunities? It can connect me more to people that I'm supposed to meet for my purpose, that it's more good luck, it's more synchronicity. I'm telling you, it's all those things and more. And you want to know how to get it more than go, don't be unpresent so often. Put your mind on a leash, train your mind, discipline your mind. And the starting place is always to come back, come to your senses. Come to your senses. Exit the daydream. Exit the mental mind wandering. Exit the hallucinations about the past and the future. And say, come to my senses. Yeah, your five senses. What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you feel when you take a breath? What's happening in your fingertips? What do you see in your immediate surroundings? Or, as one of my friends well puts it, you want to come be present? Make your world small. And making your world small means the only thing in existence is what you can see, feel, hear, taste right now. There's no more world than that. And when you make your world small and you are in touch with it through your five senses, you have become present. There's only one advanced step to it. There's only one mastery beyond that, because that's the good starting place is there. And you will be externally present to reality, and it will benefit you more than anybody can tell you. The mastery beyond that step is when you become present externally and internally at the same time. And that is likely what the gurus are telling us is damn near enlightenment. And you know, it's wild as you can get there now.
What a start. Okay, guys, catch the fire hose of codes that just came through that incredible transmission. That is a transmission. Whoa. We were actually in a talk today about being miracle minded as a practical way to live. And that is, I mean, you've just said it. You've tested it, you've proven it. And, you know, under the bigger umbrella of being on God's payroll, you're prioritizing God, consciousness, whatever, you know, everybody's got their word for it, right? You are saying to us, priority is on this moment, which is the doorway to, these are my words, you didn't say, unseen forces working in our favor.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I used to make a living for the first, let's see, for the first 40 something years of my life, probably 47 years of my life, I made a living and I did a really good job. That's mostly what you hear in that. And it was, I also made a purposeful, passionate life. There's mostly nothing wrong with the way I made a living. But when I discovered that through presence, I could stop having to make a living and I could just live life, and life would be supportive and co-creative with me. I have no interest in making a living. And I am one person walking in proof year after year that I don't have to lift a finger to make a living, and I don't.
That is, I mean, so counter to everything we're taught. And even those of us who know it, even those of us who've actually had a lot of flow, miracle type things happening, synchronicity, things coming out of the blue, there can still be some shadows around it. There can still be pockets of old conditioning, beliefs, distraction. What is the whether it was the turning point at the time that you like really flipped that switch into such total conviction, devotion, surrender? What is that element that would allow, because I'll say out loud here, those listening are here for a reason. We're all being called now to whatever that next level is of what we're here for. And that certainly raises alarms within, with parts that are afraid, that don't believe that yet, that are trying to keep us safe, and so on. So your conviction is so complete. That's what I hear and feel and know of you. Your conviction is so complete, so full. What does it take to have that level of conviction when there are still parts that are screaming, no, don't go that way. Don't listen to that little voice that says, do that next scary thing that you're called to do. You know you're called to do, but.
Well, Lisa, I have learned through radical experimentation, and I'll share the radical experimentation in a second, but let me share something lighter first, because the radical experimentation will not be for most people that hear this. I just know it's true. You know, we have a mutual friend, Eric, and he always safety checks me on stuff like that. He's like, you live so extreme, like, you know, you can't tell people to do that because no one will do it. But it's okay because people can approximate it. Okay, so what I have learned through radical experimentation that brought me to great certainty is that what gets in the way of abundance is fear. And that sounds so simple, but I've seen it in myself. And that's where my truth resides, is when I can see it in myself, then I will call it a truth. If I have not seen it in myself, for me, it is just a belief or a theory, and I'm not willing to put a lot of weight in beliefs or theories. So my truth from seeing it in myself is that even when I didn't know I was afraid, even when I was making $350,000 a year and rolling big time as a speaker, I didn't know that my ego was very much afraid of not making a living. And my ego was very much afraid of not remaining significant. And so because I didn't know that I was afraid of those two things, I certainly couldn't work on it. The mask of being afraid of money for me probably looked like, it's really interesting because until I looked under the floorboards, I really examined my thinking. I did an audit of my thinking for very long periods of time, just a dedicated, like, what's happening in my head. And then you start to see, oh, there's a lot of thoughts about positivity and motivation and inspiration and passion and purpose. But there's some that are like, what if I'm homeless? And those are the most interesting ones. What if I don't get that gig and I don't get that $10,000? And what will my bank account look like? Maybe I should work harder to get that gig. What if, and though that's where I began to really see, like, I'm afraid, but it's not me. It's my ego, because I'm not my ego. And so I started to say, my ego, which I now call my roommate, lives in my head and it whispers fearful things to me. Well, it shouts them. So, the ego's louder than the soul. So I get a little confused there. But anyway, I could hear it. And I was like, so ambition, in my case, I've always thought my ambition was one-sided, and it was passion, purpose, motivation. I love my job. I love speaking. I love this. But one day I realized, oh, there's another side to the same coin. And on this coin, sometimes I go after my speaking, and I go after my comedy, and I go after my books, and I go after these gigs because I'm afraid that if I don't go after it, I will lose everything, including my sense of self. So ambition became a two-sided coin. So I lived 40 years thinking it was only one-sided, it was only good. And then one day I realized it's two sides. It's good and it's spirit and it's fear. So I determined, like, time to get rid of the fear. I can't live fear-based. So how would I behave if I wasn't afraid? And the answer was, I wouldn't lift a finger to make a living. Whenever I felt the ambition slash motivation to stir up my income, I would ask myself, is that fear-based? And the answer would usually be, yeah, it kind of is, because you're afraid that if you don't go after it with, do that thing where you make your career great, you won't be able to pay your mortgage. And people will forget about you. And so I said, well, then I won't do that thing that my ego just suggested, because it's fear-based. It's a fear-based thing to do. So I will just let the thought go, and I will sit and wait for a thought that is not fear-based of what to do with my time. And if something doesn't come, then I will do nothing except what's in front of me. So I made this decision on January 1st, 2016, and I didn't lift a finger to pay my big mortgage with 2 kids. I didn't lift a finger. And it was weird, and it was hard, and it was scary. By March, really, it was the opposite way that I'd lived for my entire career. People would say at parties, what's Patrick Combs up to? Patrick Combs is always up to something. I'd be like, nothing. Patrick's not up to any. Well, I mean, I've been changing, cat litter, a lot of cat litter every day, cat litter. I'm the one in our house that changes the cat litter. An IRS audit, like lots of paperwork from an IRS audit. And all the other usual things like raking the leaves and taking out the trash, and cleaning the toilets and, taking care of the house. People would look at me like I'd lost my mind. Like, where's the Patrick Combs I know and I like and always inspires me? I'm like, not here. This Patrick Combs is up to nothing, being living mundane, unless spirit gives me something to do. And then by summer, I was more peaceful and more joyful. And I felt more loving from the inside out than I'd ever known was possible in my life. And that was my holy grail. I was like, I didn't know that peace, love, and joy were for free. I always worked for them. I didn't know that from nothingness, from lack of ambition, comes those things for free. If there was just space in me for them to exist. So by summer, I was like, yeah, I don't need to be a somebody in the world. I mean, if I feel this good being a nobody, this is great. And then came the harvest. I didn't need it. But by September, a harvest of the most purposeful, passionate, life-affirming work came in. It's never stopped. It's never stopped. And so the last thing I'd like people to know, because I wish people could see it every year, because maybe Lisa heard me in one of my programs say this. Chances are I've started every January of the last 7 years, maybe more, with nothing ahead of me. No money, no jobs, no income. And I have learned, and I've behaved consistently because of my presence practice. I don't panic. I don't plan. I don't figure out, whoa, shit, you better fill something in. I just wake up and be. And every year, my life fills with tremendous projects, mostly of service, mostly that are really fun, joyful. Well, all of them. I can't think of an exception. So mostly it's kind of just a language term, being humble. And I'm not saying I'm being humbled. It's just that comes from that language style. But every year, I'm astounded that my life fills up with all the money I need and more, and some of the most beautiful work of my life. And it happens to all be in service of other people while serving me and my passion and my creativity. And as an example, the other day, 2 weeks ago, I had a great first 9 months. And then I looked at my spreadsheet and I said, oh, look, not a dime coming in for the next 4 months, for the rest of the year. And I've already told you my pattern. I'm not going to do anything about that. So I just, yeah, but something always comes to me, something inspired to do. So I'm like, oh, I've gone crazy for the last 3 weeks working damn near all day, every day for 3 weeks on a non-paying avocation to write a Wikipedia page for an artist that lived in the 1950s that I don't know. And at the same time, $50,000 worth of work has come in. Go figure.
There it is. What a gift you've just given. I mean, it's profound. Chills running through. I mean, that's the divine design. And to me, I mean, what I hear is like, well, that's how it's meant to be when we're courageous enough to go beyond the fear. And as I was listening, I was also thinking, we all have this part. I love that, that you call that voice the roommate, the fear, the part that's afraid, ego. We all have it. We all have that lizard brain at the base of the skull there, that's just desperate to survive. And it's producing all kinds of thoughts. So that absolute commitment to not pick those thoughts up anymore as the lead, and that there it is. I mean, there's really nothing else to say, but I have more questions, I mean, I have more things I'd like, but that's it,
My whole life is so different because of it, Lisa. Like I'm thinking of things like early on in that journey, and I also feel the call to offer people who are not going to be extreme like me, and who are not going to say, "Oh, I won't lift a finger to make a living." I'll do it, but please do. Like we're all equals in the universe. It will work. But let's say it's just not your path yet. So I'm going to give you simpler advice that will move you, that I believe could move you in that direction. Okay. But right before I do, just having these flashbacks, I can see the difference in my life. So when I was new to it and I was in that 2016 year, I happened to be around this speaker and I was speech coaching this guy. And so I went to, because he asked me, like everything was because someone asked me, I didn't pursue it. And so I'm sitting in the back of the room and there are these people going up on stage and they're telling the audience how to speak. And my ego is shouting at me. It's shouting like, oh my God, did you hear that? That person's giving advice and they've been speaking 2 years. You've been speaking 25 years. Let's go home and let's make our website scream how great we are and how much we know about speaking so that we're the person on the stage, not that person on the stage. This is how the ego talks to me, right? It just screams for significance, right? Because it's terrified of non-existence. The ego is terrified of non-existence, and it can feel when you're moving towards its non-existence. It can feel the loss of power and it will panic in your head. It's really wild. It will get louder and clearer. But back then I was really did it right. I said, no, we're not going to go home and improve our brand in order to try and get great opportunities because you're speaking from a place of fear. Had that come in a quiet moment when I'm, when I'm relaxed and I'm at peace and I'm communing with nature maybe, and then I hear a beautiful whisper that says, hey, work on your brand. Then 100% I'd work on my brand because it's a whisper from the universe saying, get ready. Like, this is what the universe wants. But it wasn't. It was coming from the ego. And because I could always say, like, is this fear-based? Is this based on a lack of money or a loss of significance? Yes, it is. Go fuck yourself. Sorry, my language, but that's how I talk to my ego. I just finally learned, like, my ego is responsive to go F yourself. Okay. I'm not listening to you. You can talk, but I'm not acting on it. But you know what I noticed this week, Lisa, by chance? That now when I make pages so that when people say, do you have any examples of your work? I make them in black and white. Because I lost the thing in myself that says, the fear in myself that says it's got to look better, be better, blah better. Because my dominant thought nowadays, and I didn't used to have it, is, are you kidding? My God, and I don't know what my God is, just I have to be clear. Like, I'm not someone walking around knowing what God is. I have no idea. Like, that's so mysterious to me, except I see footprints and handprints and fingerprints everywhere. So something exists and I see it clearly operating in my life and lives of others. So I'm positive. I just don't know what it is. That would be the big reveal, like, right? However, I can see that my old belief system used to think that my God must be very small. And now I recognize, are you kidding? If whatever God is wants to give me money, it has an infinite amount of ways to do it. It doesn't require me to have a fantastic brand or to make a phone call. And I just can't, I mean, it just can reach into my life any freaking way it wants. And that's all I ever see is because the $50,000 of work that came in the last week while I was doing something else that will come to not one single dime, 3 weeks of my life. The $50,000 came from 2 clients that were nowhere in my reality or in my nowhere on my radar. They were sent from nowhere. And came right before they were sent? Me turning down a really giant celebrity client.
Really? Tell us, why did you turn them down?
Because my intuition said, don't do it.
There's integrity.
I'm looking ahead at no money on the books. And the biggest celebrity client I've ever had knock on my door and ask me to speech coach them. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Until I woke up the next day and I couldn't shake this intuitive feeling like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I'm a little slow. So I was like, maybe I should. In the end, I said, I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'm not going to do it. And then a week later, boom, 2 clients out of nowhere. So when you invited me in this podcast, I said, I agree with you. I think it works this way too.
Right on. I mean, and that's I think I spoke over you, but I mean, there's integrity at the highest degree. You know, that is the one thing that in the old conditioning, the old training that this realm teaches us, putting money first before these other things you're pointing to is the way we sell our soul, so to speak. There's a reason for that saying, but it can be so subtle. You easily could have done that job and nobody would have known the difference.
I could have bragged about it.
Except you. Yeah. Except you and your intuition. You also have a great story. It's popping in my head. Might be yeah, just like, not that anybody needs any more proof, but you actually was it last year now? You had an inspiration. I heard you say the creative muse said to write a new show. You had already had a world renowned one-man show, and you got the inspiration to do another.
Boy, on
For
January 1st, I hadn't thought about doing a show. I hadn't done a show in 10 years. Hadn't thought about it. And on January 2nd, something said, hey, we're going to start writing a show today. And then I dedicated 9 months of unpaid 8 to 12 hour days because of inspiration, just nonstop to making a show that eventually, in the end, I would make $200 on. No,
and
imagine that. Like if I'm looking ahead, like, okay, this year, it's another one of those years where the universe will either pour in work and opportunities or I'm toast, you know? But and instead I go work on a show for 9 months and the universe just keeps, as I'm focused here, the universe says, and here, serve this client, here, serve this client, here, serve this client, and it all fits together. And I think the most amazing thing that happens that I look around and I experience from what you're suggesting to people is possible. The other thing I would testify, because you can hear my testimonies a lot too, the universe can supply you with the material needs. And my quote for that is a biblical reference that came to me, not from reading the Bible, but from studying with Eckhart Tolle. And, you know, it was Eckhart Tolle says, the Bible says, look at the lilies, they don't toil to make a living. And that's deeply embedded in me because I think that is a great encapsulation of what I've learned. Look at Patrick, look at humans. We're part of nature. Why should we have to toil to make a living unless we separate ourselves from nature? Because the universe grows and it grows and supplies everything in it, and we're in it. We're the fabric of it. We're energetically inseparable from it all. The one thing that can separate us from it is our ego. And it is the one goal of the ego is to create the illusion of separation from everything around us. So where was I going with that? I don't remember.
about the toiling, the lilies, and you also reminding
Oh,
me.
the other thing that really amazes me, Lisa, is my life for years since I came to this way of being is so in for me. This is just how I experience my life feeling wise. Is so rich, adventurous, full of clients and full of avocations and full of trips and quality time with my loved ones, tons of quality time. And you know the wildest part? It's not the money. It's that I don't feel that time is limited. I don't feel like I used to feel, which is how do you fit it all in? How do you squeeze it all in? My life is literally an experience of an abundance of time. So I don't think abundance is limited to the universe can be abundant with you financially. I think that the nature of time can become abundant too. How come so much happens to me in a year that I used to experience as almost overwhelming, and now I experience as almost solitude, or not solitude because I'm with my loved ones all the time, but peaceful. How come? How come I never feel rushed? How come I never feel overwhelmed? And yet so much populates life. And I think that's because somehow, in the absence of too much ego, because I still have ego, the fabric of time shifts too.
Boom. We all need, I think that's a really great point about, of course, you still have ego. It's just, it's in its right role. It's in it's in balance. It's able to contribute rather than dominate. You're using it in the way that it's designed. I've shared this in one other conversation. I have a saying, soul as CEO, mind as COO.
Oh, that's awesome, Lisa.
You get the
That's awesome.
inspiration, but it's divine inspiration. The power of the mind is in taking the steps and navigating this reality so that your creative spark can actually delight the
That's
world.
that's awesome, Lisa.
Thank you for that. And just on that, on your show, which I saw, which was astounding, exceptional, called Trying to Break a Leg, your second show. You also shared, I heard at some point along the way that you shared that you did a read of that show to a couple, and the most unexpected thing happened.
Yeah, so I'm working on that show, right? And I'm doing it knowing like there's no recompense to this. No, like this. This is purely a soul project, right? And Jesus, I'm spending all my time on it. And so I was 3 months into it and I finally finished the script, right? Thanks for reminding me of this beautiful moment. And so this couple that I'm friends with for sure, um, they had missed when I was globally touring Man One Bank Zero. So one day they said, I said, well, I can tell you the story. And I told them the story for an hour in their living room. And from that point on, they always felt like they got a private showing of my, you know, my successful show, Man One Bank Zero. So when they heard that I had written a new show, they go, well, we get another private show in our living room. Come over and read it to us. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. I need to read the script to somebody. So I go over to them. And by the time I get there, I'd read it out loud once to a group over Zoom. And I was so embarrassed because it took 2 hours to read. Actually, an hour and a half at that point. So I go into my two friends' house and it's noontime on a Monday, which is very sobering, right? There's no theater to that whatsoever. And I go, guys, I just read this to out loud for the first time. It's 90 minutes. I'm not going to burden you with 90 minutes. Like, like I'll give you a little taste and then we'll all get back to our better lives. And they're like, just shut up and read it. I'm like, okay. So I read it, the whole thing. They sit there for 90 minutes and then, and I'm terribly insecure about my creative work. And at the end, I look at their faces, and I've known these guys for about 10 years. I had never seen either look on either of their faces, and it was indelible and remarkable because she had a face. She had a face that was more gleeful than I'd ever seen on her face. Somehow the show lit her up with glee and delight, and she was just beaming. And then I looked at his face, and his face was more kid-like than I had ever seen. And this is a 78-year-old man who has the most gravitas of any human I've ever met in my life. He is a mentor to me in a certain aspect of life. And so I'd never seen him look 14 before. And it was so beautiful. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then he goes, I'll just cut to the chase. And he's like, the world needs to see this show. I'm like, oh, thanks, Dean. He's like, how much would it take to put it on? And I start with the numbers, the way my mind works. I'm like, wow. And I'm like, well, it costs about $1,500 to rent the theater. And I'm about to get to the total number of $2,000. He goes, I'm giving you $25,000 to put this show on, no strings attached. And he did. And he did. And you're right, Lisa. That was one of those moments in my life where I was like, man, whatever God is can give you money from any direction possible. just it has whatever the God force is, it has an infinite amount of ways to support you.
So beautiful. So beautiful. We're coming close to our time. So I have two more questions for you. One is, you at a point earlier in your journey, when you were figuring stuff out still, did some research on money,
A lot.
a lot of research on money. And I'm
I almost wrote a
curious,
book. I came very
almost,
close to publishing it as a book.
what would you like us to know about what you discovered through that research?
Well, I mean, what meant a lot to me um, is money really makes you happy if you're living below the subsistence line. I mean, you want to make someone happier who's living below the subsistence, the level of that they can pay their bills and they can put a shelter and they have food security and shelter security. The fastest way to make any person happy is give them the money to do that. And they'll literally be happier. So money can make you happy. And, I grew up and my mother often lived below that line. So $100 would have made her happier. So I never say money can't make you happy. It sure can. And then if you get extra, and it's really your initial experience with extra money, that will make you happier too. And if money comes to you by surprise, it will always make you happier if it comes by surprise. This is what science research says is the happiest money is money that comes by surprise. And it's so true. But there's I've never seen research that shows that extraordinary amounts of money contribute to your happiness. And I don't see any personal evidence for it either. And I also, through some of the companies I've had where our clientele were multimillionaires, I didn't see any evidence that multi-millions makes them any happier whatsoever. So I don't put faith in money making me happier. But I know how good it feels to make a living. And I know how good it feels to be able to choose what I want in the grocery store. Um, I always remember Jack Canfield telling me a story of Chicken Soup for the Soul. I got to spend a day. Actually, we almost wrote that money book together. So I was at his house and I was showing him my work, and he was beginning to contribute to it. But I always remember him telling me his experience about getting wealthy. And he said he knew he was off track when he went to a store and they showed him they showed him these shirts and he liked them, but he couldn't decide what color he wanted. So he said, I'll take them all, because it was inconsequential. He was making millions from Chicken Soup for the Soul. And that's when he realized, I'm completely off track with money now. Rather than make a simple decision of what color I like, I'm now just waving my personality and saying, just give them all. So what? I don't have to make a decision. So there's these little spots like that, I think, where hopefully we can all, I'll just cut to what I wish for anybody listening. I think the greatest thing anybody can ever do is figure out what enough money plus a little more is. And I really wish for everybody to get that. Beyond that, I just say, be careful. Be careful about worshiping money. Be careful about believing in money bringing you a purposeful, amazing life just because you can travel more and you can get more than one home and you can get more than one things. Just really be careful with that, because I can't find very many people who enjoy those benefits at a level that's comparable at all to finding inner peace, inner joy, and inner love. Like, they're incomparable. Like, I can guarantee anybody here that if you take the time to get to know the egoic mind and you distance yourself from that mind, or you take the time to live in your real life more often, and that will bring you untold amounts of peace, love, and joy for free all the time, no matter what your circumstances are. And money it can't bring those returns. And yet our society behaves as if it will, and it won't. There's no evidence. There's nobody running around shouting from the mountaintops. When I finally became a billionaire, I was peaceful, loving, and joyful. They're saying the opposite. So I want a life that is based on peace, love, and joy, and what the universe wants me to do. And what I've learned is the universe wants for everybody sustenance. Let me take that back. Let me just delete that. And I don't know what the universe wants. Of course I don't. Of course I don't. So I don't know where that came from. I don't know what the universe wants. And I don't know how the universe operates. Okay. But show me someone who becomes present, who becomes deeply present to their life far more often, and I will show you someone who fills up with peace, love, and joy for no reason. And I will bet, honestly, real money, that their life will also fill up with purpose, passion, synchronicity, good luck. I'd probably bet health too.
You're certainly demonstrating that. I think you're getting younger. I've known you a number of years now, getting younger, vital. So thank you, Patrick. What an incredible, I mean, this is just an invaluable gift, what you've shared with us. So thank you for living your path and being so devoted to it. I want to let
Can I
people
say
know.
something real quick?
Of course.
I usually think this to myself after an interview, because I usually think so, Jesus, can't you just make things shorter? Like, Jesus, you just spent an hour and you said so little. That's how I feel. Jeez, Patrick, like, just tell a short story for God's sake.
No, you're such a great storyteller. I think that's part of the power of this transmission and the richness of the transmission. I love it so much.
That's
Thank
all
you.
I can hope, is that there was some element of transmission, because in my hands, I always just think, Jesus, Patrick, have you ever heard the word brevity? Jesus.
You're funny. You have a free gift that is an incredible gift. We're calling a call with purpose, a 20-minute chance to connect with you. Tell us what your intention is with that.
Well, it's really simple. I think that I'm not selling anything on the call. If you haven't figured that out about me yet, then you haven't been listening. Okay, so I'm not trying to rope somebody into a like pre-qualified call. I believe that the universe can say to somebody listening, "Hey, Patrick has something for you," and that they could hear that. And if it was genuine for them, then they should call and see if the universe can facilitate what I have for them in that 20 minutes. Because I'll just use the 20 minutes to say, um, uh, what perhaps can I help you with? And then it would be on the caller to say, hey, I don't know, I have this question, or I'm thinking of doing this, and for some reason you felt like you might be someone that could give me good advice on that, and I'll give you whatever sparks in me that is true for whatever you're asking. And then in 20 minutes, I hope what we've experienced is a connection, but I hope more than a connection. It's a little cliche. I just hope that you ask something that sparks something genuine in me that I could give to you. And then at the end of 20 minutes, you would feel better off. And you would say, wow, he did have something for me. And that would be our interaction. That's what I hope. And so I hope what people hear too is, if you're calling me, please call with good purpose. Don't call the only kind of call that I don't appreciate is the kind of call where someone doesn't really know why they're calling, and it's almost like they want me to say something unprompted to them, and I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. So I'm not a psychic. I don't have any psychic powers.
I love it. Great. What a gift. So yeah, check inside yourself, to those listening, right? Just check inside if there's a genuine spark. That's very clear. Thank you, Patrick. Where else can they find you if they want to stay connected with how you create in the
Yeah, I
world?
really like my bio.site / Patrick Combs. I wonder if it's bio.site / Patrick Combs. I'm not sure. But you can find that link on my Instagram. And I'm on Instagram as Be Miracle Minded. Um, yeah, and I'm also on Instagram more spiritually as Now.Awakening. But both of those link to my bio site. And my bio site has a link to all the different things that I do in life, from writing origin stories to speaking to blah, blah, blah. To my one-person show, if you want to see my comedy. Boy, I would think that someone on this call would think, there's no way you're funny. You're so serious.
I cannot recommend enough Man One, Bank Zero, the one-man show that went around the world and won all kinds of things. And I mean, get your loved ones around the TV and stream, because it's a gift. It's incredible, so fun and funny and powerful. It's a true story, but that you put on the stage.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so
It's on YouTube for free, finally.
yes, and it wasn't always. Also, origin story writing. You've done mine. It's exceptional. So
Thank you so much for this, Lisa.
thank you. Um, any last words? Yeah, I think you've said it all, but any last
Oh,
words?
sure, of course. Let's see. Yeah, what I hear inside, and I agree, is the more anything we do that helps us identify where we're afraid inside, anything we do to undo that fear, to alleviate fears in ourselves, is an astonishing power gain in this universe. And I think that at the end of my life, if there's a curtain pulled back and some light being shares with me what my path was about, I've begun to think that they will say, did you figure out that you were there to root out all the fears inside yourself and experience life without fear? Because I think that's what's going on. And
Wow.
life without fear is astonishing.
Wow.
It's safe, it's abundant, it's miraculous, it's fortunate, it's blessed. Life without fear.
Beautiful.
It's a journey, right? It's a journey to get there. We have pockets of fear throughout us.
100%. And at every stage, whatever stage. So thank you so much. And for those of you listening, it's a great moment to take some time out and shine some light. What are you noticing that are fears right now with the stage that you're at, with what you're called to next? Take some time, pen and paper, walk in nature. So the whole intent of this is that this has served your highest good and your highest path. So like every interview, every chance we've had to have a conversation, may this also have done that for you. I will see you in the next interview. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Patrick. So much love and appreciation.
Thank you, Lisa. Awesome.